If I told you that I tasted chocolates for a living, it would sound quite unbelievable, right? Let me tell you, that's exactly what I do for a living. You have a dream job. This is what I hear most people say when they meet me. With a master's degree in retail business management and after tasting 2000 plus chocolates over the last 5 years, I must tell you that this chocolate journey is sweeter than I had expected it to be. To set the record straight, I have no culinary background. I come from a management consulting background, and in the past, working for retail clients, I've had the good privilege and honor to work with some fantastic brands of food from across the world. During one such project, I happened to have the privilege to taste an Italian chocolate which was made from bean to bar. This was way back in 2005, and this was my introduction to bean to bar chocolate making. While evaluating a lot of chocolates from various chocolate makers from across the globe, I happened to get a package of a couple of chocolates in them, and as I tasted it, I got busy with an email which needed my complete attention. At that point of time, I tasted the chocolate and forgot about it on my palate. And at the end of the email, I could taste berry notes and fruity notes, on my palate. That's when I realized I had probably hit something very big. 15 years later, that smell and aroma and the taste still lingers with me every day. My management consulting career took me to various countries around the world, and every weekend there was chocolate in my plans. So either I would visit a farmer's market where there would be chocolate sold, or to a retail store where I could explore chocolates and the availability of various kinds of chocolates. In 2013, I decided that I'd like to call a quit to my corporate career, and I decided to come back to India. While sitting together with family, the first thing my dad told me was there is no work that is small. Whether you're selling peanuts or anything else in the world, you should make sure you do it with entire dedication and passion. Well, that might be a discussion for a completely different day, but I decided I need to do something with chocolates. And the only dilemma at that point of time was where in the value chain we could fit ourselves. The one thing that I realized is chocolate is an ocean that needs to be explored. A backpacking trip to Belgium followed this conversation, and I realized there is so much to know about chocolates. But one thing that interested and amused me greatly is that chocolate was made by the seed of a fruit, and the seed was quite bitter. What Belgium did very well over the last 15-20 years, or even maybe 40 years, was that it capitalized on the amount of quantity of chocolate that they were able to process. And Belgium did not even grow cocoa beans. They were largest producers of chocolate. That visit got a lot of things clear in my mind. During that visit to Belgium, what happened at the Chocolate Museum changed my life forever. I met Martin Christie, who was conceptualizing and marketing a chocolate taster certification course. How do you make the best pastry unless you've actually tasted the best pastry? That's what I wondered. And I knew the answer would lie in the certification program. The program would help me understand what is good chocolate and how to identify it and differentiate it from bad chocolate. With all the knowledge and the content that I gathered on my Belgium trip and the chocolate taster certification, when I came back to India, I decided that I should host a set of people who are interested to hear about chocolates, about my experiences, about how chocolate is made, and almost do a virtual, travel around the world with chocolates. And I was very honored to host several such audiences. And I also started getting paid for the time. So that got me wondering as to what next, because this was an opportunity which I wanted to capitalize on. And I realized that India, as a country with 1.3 billion people as population, really had a lot of potential to be educated and also to be offered great chocolate. In all my further travels across the world, I started understanding the difference between a large-scale chocolate producer, like the chocolate producers in Belgium, for instance, and several other new age chocolate producers that have now started becoming popular, who used to produce chocolate in quite a small scale. And I was actually very impressed by the fact, and also surprised, I must say, by the fact that they were using our South Indian stone grinders to make award-winning chocolates. That got me really, really interested and engaged with this entire process. And I wanted to understand how to go further into it and see how we could use our Indian concepts and Indian equipments in the entire chocolate making process and really shrink the process of chocolate making into small batches. Over the next few years, I went about developing small scale equipments required for the cacao industry. In the process, we collaborated with several equipment makers and, for instance, adapted for every process different equipments used with different food processing industries. So we started off using an air roaster for roasting cacao, which we use even today. We then developed a cracker and winnower, which again we use even today at our production unit. And from there, we also modified or helped companies modify their idli grinders, and we were test partners with several of them to make sure that the equipment is now worthwhile being used for cacao over a long period of time. So within about 6 months, we had a room with several equipments that could process 2 kilos of chocolate from cocoa bean to the bar. I think that was a forward integration that really helped us. But what initially inspired me was when we looked around and saw a lot of the coffee industry moving towards specialty coffee. I thought, why can that not happen in cacao? And I think with the set of small scale equipments all in a room that could produce 2 kgs of chocolate in a batch over 2 days, I think it was very, very exciting at that point of time. During that time, I had also coincidentally and very fortunately discovered Indian cacao. Indian cacao did not have much to talk about at that point of time because the farmers were not very involved with the improvement in quality of cacao. But I definitely thought that if this story has to move forward, we need the contribution of farmers and they have to be part of the growth story. So one of the things we did was we took farmers to an international exhibition in Amsterdam in 2015. And that was really when the world actually saw Indian cacao and what it was capable of. The next challenge back in India was to ensure that we packaged the bean to bar chocolate business as an exciting startup idea. That's when we introduced a 3-day bean to bar chocolate making program, which took students through the entire process and also helped them understand the economics and financials about the entire business, along with marketing and branding importance. That's how our institute actually came into being. But over the next few years, around 2018, we had a lot of students asking us why we don't produce our own chocolate. And that got us wondering, and just like any other business situation or problem, we had to find a solution. And the solution was simply introduce our own brand of chocolates to prove our capability to the audience. And we've not seen back since. The brand has helped us also convince students and participants about the program. And we've now had about 100 students from India who've trained themselves in bean to bar chocolate making. At the end of this entire journey, I can tell you that there is no other exciting country to be in than India as far as bean to bar chocolate entrepreneurship is concerned.
Thanks for giving me a patient listening, everybody. Now from my journey, it's time to move to the journey of chocolate. And who knew or who assumed that chocolate could grow on trees? I mean, literally so. So the cocoa beans that we use to make chocolate is actually the seed of this fruit that you see on your screen just now. This is Theobroma cacao, the botanical name for the tree, and the cocoa pod grows on the tree with a season ranging anywhere from December to about May or June every year. It grows in the south of India, and you would see many colors of these as you visit various farms. Typically, it grows in tropical climate and 20 degrees above and below the equator. India is very privileged to grow cacao and also be a huge consuming nation. But the irony is that most of the cacao growing countries traditionally did not produce enough chocolate. Most of the beans, when harvested, would travel seven seas to the more developed world of the past to get processed into chocolate. India is one of the newer origins for cacao. Like any other plant, the journey starts at a farm with potent soil, and like any other plant, when the seed is planted, it shoots up and is then planted in a farm with shade trees already existing. Cacao as a plant needs shade almost through its life. It comes in various shapes and sizes, and I always give an example of apple. Like how you have various varieties of apples that are available. Each of them differ in size, shape, and color sometimes, and of course have different flavor profiles as well. Cacao is very similar. They largely categorized in three groups, which is Criollo, Forastero, and Trinitario. However, it's strange that these were trading terms and these are groupings made for the convenience of trade. A cacao farmer harvests the fruit at the right time when it is ripe enough to harvest, and then he cuts it open. What you see when it's open is about 40 seeds weighing 1 gram each, covered in pulp or mucilage, which is really sweet and delicious to consume, but is actually preserved for the next phase of processing. So at the farm, all the seeds that are harvested are put in wooden boxes to start the process of fermentation. This is typically a process which generates heat and lasts for anywhere between 5 to 7 days, with the mass being turned every now and then to maintain consistency. It is then covered with banana leaves and jute bags to trap the heat. After it has fermented, it is sun dried to ensure that there is no moisture left and it is safe for travels. The first thing a chocolate maker does is grade the cocoa beans which he receives, and after which there's a process of roasting. It is believed that fermentation helps you develop the flavor components and roasting helps you unlock them. So just like coffee, roasting is quite critical in the cacao process. After which, proudly enough, chocolate is actually ground along with other ingredients in traditional stone grinders, and a lot of us know this from our homes. They are the typical idli grinders. Of course, the mechanics and the motor and the heat dispersion mechanisms undergo an upgrade because a typical batch has to run anywhere between 48 to 72 hours in a stone grinder to make the silky smooth chocolate that we all like. After the paste is ground in the stone grinders, there is a process of tempering that chocolate to undergo to ensure that all the fat crystals that have literally broken apart are made to come together to form a shape inside the mold. After tempering, the chocolates are molded with different shapes and you can give them different colors and they're almost like pieces of art. They could be sold in blocks with various fruits and nuts placed on top. A question that most people ask is what is the percentage in chocolate? And to keep it simple, If you read a dark chocolate and it says it's 70% dark, the first thing it implies is that it has 30% sugar. And the balance 70% comes from cacao related ingredients, which would typically mean cocoa beans or cocoa butter. It is obvious that the higher the cocoa percentage, the lesser the sugar there is. But this logic holds good only for dark chocolates. In a milk chocolate, the balance of the percentage mentioned would constitute sugar and milk and maybe some other ingredients. But the percentage mentioned in chocolate always means that's the percentage of ingredients that come from cacao.
I started my journey being confident about what I would like to do, just as how my family was confident in whatever I wanted to do. But I thought at that point of time that I would do it all by myself. As somebody said, and as fate would have it, if you want to walk fast, walk alone. But if you want to walk far, walk together. I knew heart of hearts that walking alone was not a thing for me. Over these few years, we worked and collaborated with various cocoa farmers, equipment manufacturers, and we built a team of entrepreneurs in the bean to bar chocolate business. The Indian cocoa bean now has international recognition and also competes with various chocolates from overseas. I have been able to make small but positive contributions to the bean to bar chocolate industry in India by empowering Indian startups and also training people across the board. We've ensured that all the value that is generated stays within the country. And I must say, my journey has only just begun.